Okay, now we have Susan Smith with the Florida Democratic Progressive Caucus.
Thank you. It's very hot out here, and I want to thank everybody who's been patiently waiting. I especially want to thank the organizers for this event, and Diane Wilson in particular. I have organized a few of these myself, and as hard as it is to be up here speaking, it's 100 times harder to do what the organizers have done. So give it up for the organizers. Thank you. I think there are 4 women who have given us lessons and a pathway to move forward from today. Eleanor Roosevelt, my friend Janet Marks, Ashley Judd, and Anna Quindlen. The first woman, Eleanor Roosevelt, said, "You should do one thing every day that scares you." This is very frightening. So this is my one thing. So think about what you're going to do. Face your fears. The lesson she gives us is to face your fears and don't let them get in the way of your actions. The second woman, my friend Janet Marks, is a nurse and fellow Democratic volunteer in Hillsborough County. She recently confessed to thinking that battles to protect Planned Parenthood and abortion rights were no longer her issues because she had kind of outgrown the need for them. And she thought that it might offend voters if we talked about those things. And then with the Trayvon Martin tragedy and the gun control issue, she decided we can no longer afford to be quiet about any of these issues. We have to speak up. She said she realized that in this last legislative session and what's going on in Washington, our very existence as women is at stake. So the lesson to take from that is we can't ignore anybody's issues. We have to work together and form coalitions. There's not just a war on women. There's a war on children. There's a war on workers. There's a war on students. There's a war on minorities. There's a war on our public institutions, our public schools, our health departments, our libraries, even our prisons. So the lesson is we can't silo and work on only one issue. Join coalitions and work together. The third woman, Ashley Judd, recently had a puffy face moment. She was doing press junkets for a new TV show, and she discovered that the media didn't really want to talk to her about her work. They wanted to talk to her about her puffy face. Because she was taking steroids, they all thought she'd had plastic surgery. She was outraged over this and decided that instead of sulking at home with her hurt and her anger, she would take that anger and do something positive with it. She said, "Why must women continually be humiliated and wounded over our appearance?" So she wrote an op-ed that was published online, and then she did television interviews, and she talked about her puffy-faced moment. She said for somebody else it might be a big butt moment, but it's the moment where you finally had enough. So I think most of us are here today because we finally had enough. We need to take that anger and let it empower us to get out and take action, because that's what anger can do. I know when people ask me how I do all the things I do, I say because I'm so angry all the time. That's what I have to do to survive. The fourth woman is Anna Quindlen, who's also on a book tour. I saw her on Jon Stewart's show the other night, and she said, "Throughout history, when there is rapid change and when things are in flux, women's rights have always come under attack." So you see, what's happening now is nothing new. We have to learn from our history, and one of those lessons is to take inspiration from the women who have come before us. We have to learn those lessons and realize that we can win. So before you leave today, I want you to promise to do 3 things. It's important to register to vote, and once you're registered, it's important to sign up to vote by mail. And that's because we need you out working on Election Day and the time prior to that to get more people who think the way we do and who support women to come out and vote. We need leaders that work for us, not against us. I want you to join that coalition I was talking about. And I happen to be a part of one called Awake the State. If you're interested, I can give you information about that coalition. I think many of you are already a part of it. And the last thing is do your homework. Somebody said it before, know the amendments, know the issues, know your officials, but more importantly, make sure they know you. Your work as a citizen and as a soldier in this unwanted battle doesn't end on Election Day. That's where the real fight begins. Thank you.
My next speaker is a woman I met online because I read an essay she wrote, and I was so impressed with the essay, I invited her to come speak today. So she's representing all of us women, and she's a mom too, so I'd like to have Jody Renee Thomas come up, please.
That's right. There's a million moms here, but I'm here to represent all of you. It's a little scary. So I wrote this article entitled "A Slut Speaks Out." It was my personal response to the things that have been going on. I didn't expect it to do anything, but all of a sudden, in 3 hours, it had 4,000 hits, and so here I am, a slut speaking out. Slut, spinster, bitch, prude, feminist, single mom. These are all things that I've been called since that article came out. And so many more that I wouldn't like to say with children around. And according to a new law in Arizona, I'm pregnant right now. It seems that just so many people can't figure out ways to hate people and women like me. You call me a slut, and in the same sentence, you call me a prude. How does that work out? But they think that I'm only one woman, so my opinion doesn't matter. And I'm here to show the entire world exactly how loud one woman's voice can be. My name is Jody Renee Thomas. I'm a single working mom who is full of opinions and never once afraid to give them to you. As a writer, I am given the honor of putting it out there, whether you like it or not. I try every day to find the balance between motherhood, a life of my own, and a career, just as so many do out there and so many in the generations before us. I learned from a strong, independent woman and have grown up to be more strong-willed than she could ever imagine. A virtue that I hope to instill in my 11-year-old daughter so that her generation may grow up and get even more than we could imagine. Assuming that a woman on birth control is a promiscuous drug addict is the same as if I announced to anyone who would listen that white, older men are misogynistic blowhards. But I won't do that because I was taught to be nice. Women are being accused of having so much sex, yet they can't afford birth control. That's just blatant sexism. I don't even know what the two have to do with each other. If you consider the things that birth control can do positively for ladies, sex shouldn't even be in the issue. It's not enough that conservatives have been attempting to stop women's rights recently. Instead, they are trying to take us backwards 50 years. And I won't stand for it. Any medical condition should be between an individual and their doctor, period. Birth control is medicine. It takes a doctor to get it, as does a vasectomy and any sort of erectile dysfunction medication that has been covered under insurance for years. What should be the difference? There is no logical reason for coverage to be decided between varying sexual organs. I put my life in jeopardy to have my daughter, and I have never regretted it once, because it was my choice and my choice alone. If you can't trust me with a choice, how the fuck are you gonna trust me with a child? Everyone should have the ability to decide what is best for their body and their life. What we carry between our legs does not make one gender better than the other. Just letting you know. We are all part of the human race and should be treated as equals despite our reproductive differences. Many have never had to rally at their state's capital for rights for reproduction, fair wages, or even the vote. Yet here we are. Why is it that women and other supposed minorities have to do so for every right that we now enjoy? It is unfortunate that anybody that stands here to fight for our rights due to having different sexual organs have to do so because there are so many people that we've allowed in office for ages. It is time to stand up. People have been granted the privilege of all the rights that we are standing for right now and taking them for granted. But we will stand up and continue to do so until we are heard. We all stand together to fight for our generation and the rights given to us and the generation following us. In this society where men are instead not taught to rape, or taught not to rape, women are taught how to avoid being raped. We can only change that. Women are considered inferior only because we allow them to do so. For many men, the largest insult you can throw at them is to accuse them of acting like a woman. But perhaps it is time that they began to follow our lead. Let's all fight for the things that we believe in, without resorting to slanderous name-calling. Words are powerful, but it's time to empower ourselves. Unless we continue to shout intelligently, how can anyone listen? Do not let this rally lull you into a false sense of complacency. You must remain vigilant in your efforts to progress towards equality. Solely engaging in social media activism, while helpful, is insufficient. We must be diligent by contacting our representatives in government on a local, state, and federal level. As 50% of the population, we all have the right to stand up for what we believe in every aspect of life. Continue to make your voice heard. My name, again, is Jody Renee Thomas. I am a working single mother, and I am proud to say that at this moment, in my hometown, my daughter is carrying a sign at the rally in Orlando that says, "My mom is in Tallahassee fighting for my future." As an advocate for the rights of all human beings despite their sex organs, I'm a feminist on my own terms, and I vote as well should all of you.
Okay, I know it's hot. We're getting near the end. I would like to introduce Tabitha Frazier for the Leon Hispanic Caucus.
Thank you. Jody, I loved your speech, and like you, I've been called names before too. I've been called a bitch, but 3 things I have never been called is easy, a doormat, or stupid. And I'm here today to talk to you about women's rights, specifically Hispanic and immigrants. I'm going to start today by sharing a few stories. The first story I have is the story of Juana Villegas. In July of 2008, Juana was 9 months pregnant and was leaving a prenatal visit with her 3 children when she was pulled over. Juana was not able to produce a driver's license and was taken to jail. Despite the fact that driving without a license is a misdemeanor in Tennessee that generally leads to a citation, Juana was taken into custody due to suspicions about her immigration status. Juana was jailed for 6 days, during which time she gave birth to a little boy while shackled to her bed under the watchful eye of the sheriff's officer. Barred from speaking to her husband, her baby was taken from her upon birth, leading to a number of health repercussions for both mother and baby. Local police stood by their actions, calling Nashville a friendly and open city to our legal immigrants. A breast pump given to Juana was also confiscated from her. Now on to the state of Nebraska. Nebraska was the first state to pass into legislation in 2010, the Fetal Pain Bill, a bill which limits a woman's access to safe abortion to 20 weeks. Now that same governor, just last month, vetoed legislation that would have restored taxpayer-funded prenatal care coverage for illegal immigrants. And just this week, at the federal level, for the first time since its passage in 1994, the Violence Against Women Act was actually up for debate. The legislation this year specifically ensured protections for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. It also increased the number of visas available for immigrant women facing abuse. Thankfully, this passed. Unfortunately, Marco Rubio of Florida, one of the few senators of Hispanic descent, the son of immigrants, 3 days ago voted against this bill. The majority of undocumented immigrant women do not have access to affordable health insurance in the United States. And for over 10 years, the federal government has denied basic health care to low-income documented immigrants. Documented immigrant women who have lived in the United States for 5 years or less are denied access to federal Medicaid for the most basic preventative health services. Undocumented immigrant women who lack health insurance have coverage only for emergency services, which include labor and delivery, but not prenatal health care. Immigrant women are less likely to receive adequate reproductive health care, including cervical and breast cancer screening and treatment family planning services, HIV/AIDS testing and treatment, accurate sex education, and culturally and linguistic competent services. These conflicts highlight the fact that health care should not be politicized. The pro-choice movement and women's movement is consistent with supporting a woman's ability to get the health care that she needs, regardless of her immigration status. The argument seems to be that these undocumented women do not pay taxes, or as the Nebraska governor says, they have no right to this taxpayer-funded health care. This is a fallacy. According to the Immigration Policy Center, unauthorized immigrant households paid $11.2 billion in 2010 in local, state, and federal taxes. In Florida alone, the estimate paid by unauthorized immigrant households from property and sales tax totaled more than $800 million in 2010. When people think of an undocumented immigrant, they often envision a lone man crossing a river in search of work. This is also a fallacy. Women make up more than half of all immigrants living in the United States. Women often migrate to America, not as lone individuals seeking a better life for themselves, but as wives and mothers, even heads of households determined to hold their families together. More than ever, immigrant women are the gateway to improving their own lives and the lives of their families. 90% of all immigrant women come to America for a better life for their families. Immigrant women make many contributions and positive impacts to communities. Economically, women are increasingly the primary breadwinners in immigrant families. They often bring in additional income, making it more likely for the family to open a small business and purchase a home. They also provide more stability for the family and help the family put down permanent roots by initiating the citizenship process. According to the U.S. Immigration Policy Center, women now make up 51% of all lawful permanent resident seekers in the U.S. The U.S. Census Bureau estimates that 4.1 million undocumented women live in the United States. 4.1 million American citizens, meaning they were born here under the age of 18, live in a household with at least one undocumented parent. According to a new American Media report, women are more likely to initiate the citizenship process for their families, and women are more likely to invest in their children's education and send them to college. Not that we make it easy for them. Did you know that here in Florida, that if you are a child of an immigrant, legal or not, you have to pay out-of-state tuition to attend college in Florida, no matter how long you have lived in the state? How sad is it that we are willing to sacrifice some of our country's best and brightest? I think many of you may have read about the young woman who was a senior at Miami Senior High School, graduating, valedictorian of her class, National Honor Society, facing deportation. She was brought to the United States when she was 2 years old. I'm a second-generation Cuban American. Many of the stories I have told here today do not affect me or my family, but I felt compelled to organize when the DREAM Act specifically failed in 2010. For those of you unfamiliar with the DREAM Act, it is a means for undocumented children brought to the United States before the age of 16 to become citizens. They would be required to either graduate from a 4-year college or university with a degree or serve 6 years in our military. I mentioned the DREAM Act to you today because I have heard that it or some other version of it is going to come before Congress again in 2013. Thank you all for listening to me. If we're not going to speak up for these immigrant women and their children, who will? Thank you for your time, and si se puede, Tallahassee.
We're almost done. 2 more speakers, okay? We have Barbara Devane speaking for the Federation of Labor and the Florida Alliance for Retired Americans.
Barbara! Thank you, warrior women, for staying to the end, and all of you men who love us, warrior women. You are definitely the hardcore. They saved the oldest for last. When Ion Sancho spoke, and he talked about the 1880s, he pointed to me. I'm here to set the record straight. I was not around in the 1880s. I am old, though, and I'm very proud of it. I'm one of those people they refer to as an old geezer. Sometimes the people in Congress and up here refer to us as greedy old geezers. But we are not greedy. We love our children. Here's my daughter, social work daughter, LeMay Devane. And she has a sister I love. And she has 2 children, my grandchildren that I love. And I love all of you and your mothers and your sisters and your children and your grandchildren. We are about saving the future of Florida and America, and yes, this world. In just 2 years, I will celebrate the 50th year that I got my membership card in the union. I'm a retired school teacher, and the first day I stepped in my classroom, I signed up as a member of my union. And I went on to become the president of my union, and now I'm the vice president of the Northwest Florida Federation of Labor in charge of union retirees. I say that to let you know that there is a war on women, which includes a war on working women, poor women. Yes, Tabitha, thank you very much. See my best friend Karen Woodall standing over here? She led the charge, along with other groups of workers and immigrants, against bad immigration laws that they wanted to pass in our misguided state legislature. We must not leave any women behind, whether they be lesbians, poor. If you're a rich woman, you can get health care. You don't need Medicare. If you're a rich woman, you can go overseas if necessary, or out of state to get an abortion. We must never desert any woman in the state of Florida or the United States or the world. We're all in this together. Anytime I speak, especially to women or to labor union members, to workers in general, I am always reminded of the great female labor union woman. Her name was Mary Harris, but we affectionately in the labor movement call her Mother Jones. And she said, she admonished us that we must always pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living. Now, I have on my t-shirt from the Florida Alliance for Retired Americans. And yes, I am on Social Security and Medicare, and yes, I am old. I'll be 70 in just a few months. But you know what? I still have a young spirit, and I still have a lot of life left in me. And I will fight to the death with the Alliance for Retired Americans and other groups of you out there, because I'm a proud lobbyist for Florida Now. I'm on the executive board of the Tallahassee branch of the NAACP, fighting for voter protection and civil rights and unions and old people's groups, whatever I can be involved in and use my energy for. But the main goal of the Alliance for Retired Americans, and young people, you need to listen to this too, is to save Social Security and Medicare and health care reform. True, universal, single-pay health care. Every American has a right to safe, accessible, affordable, high-quality health care from the womb to the tomb. And our job is to see that Medicare is extended to every American from the womb to the tomb. So do get involved. And I know Ion also mentioned Arrive with 5. I was a woman that spent the night in Governor Jeb Bush's office with Kendrick Meek and Tony Hill, 2 legislator friends of mine, over affirmative action. You remember that, in 2000. And we brought 25,000 people right here to this spot, all down the Parkway. We've got to do those things again. But after the session was over, we did go out on the road organizing Arrive with 5. We asked everyone we talked to, thousands of people came up to listen to us. We asked them to sign a pledge that they would take Election Day off and that they would take 5 other people to the polls. Well, this year, because of all the tricks and because of the bad election laws these guys passed up here, we have to double our efforts. This year, it shouldn't be Arrive with 5. It should be Win with 10. That's the only way we're going to do it, women and men of like mind. We have to get out of our comfort zones. We have to get out into the senior centers, in the lines at the grocery store, where you get your hair cut and colored. The woman who cuts my hair and colors it, she asks me every election who to vote for, and I tell her. She listens too. And she puts signs up in front of her beauty shop because she trusts me. So there are a lot of people out there that trust you in other arenas other than just going to your meetings. Get out of those comfort zones and be an organizer so that you can protect the living. You've got to fight. We are in a war, but you know what? I'd rather have a bunch of wild women on my side as warriors than anybody in this state. So, when you should also go, not to just voter registration drives and get out the vote, this and that, phone banks, walking door to door, which we all still do. But you should go to forums when candidates are speaking, and you should sing that old Union song. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? You know, and don't just listen to their pablum that comes out of their mouth, because they'll do the senatorial shuffle and the House hully-gully, whatever, and they will lie to you. You know how I know that? You've got to get their voting record. Planned Parenthood, if you're interested in the choice issue, and I know you all are, they have a tremendous report card on these legislators. Or ask some of us who lobby. We can tell you what their votes are. It's like my Bible. If you want to know how Rubio voted in the 2011 session in Congress and the Senate on old people's issues like Social Security, Medicare, health care, et cetera, he has a 10% voting record. Nelson, Senator Nelson, on the other hand, has a 100% voting record for the old geezers, which affects a lot of you. And if you're not there yet, some of you will be soon. And I hope Social Security's still there for you when you get there, and Medicare, and when you need it, because it keeps women out of poverty. I know, I speak from experience. The other thing is, I don't know how many of you are from Tallahassee or this district. I know you're from this district, and thank you, Diane, and thank you, Rachel, for doing such a great job. I know how hard it is, just like Susan and Tabitha organizing Awake the State rallies. And thank all of you for coming. But my last thing I want to tell you, so that you can be wary of lying politicians. Steve Sutherland is my congressman, but he does not represent me. Steve Sutherland has a 0% voting record for the old geezers. And women. And women, yes. So you got to get all the report cards. He is a loser, and we have to make sure he loses in November. And there are a lot of people running to hope to take him out. But now he had the audacity. Can you imagine how much this cost? I'm sure he sent it out to all old people in his district, saying the big lie. Steve Sutherland fighting for Florida's seniors. I'm here to tell you, Sutherland sucks for seniors. Sutherland sucks on Social Security and Medicare, and that is my mantra. I'm getting bumper stickers, I'm getting t-shirts, and I'm getting out there to spread the word about Sutherland and his zero. He is a nothing when it comes to women, workers, and old geezers. Thank you all so much for coming. And Representative Alan Williams asked me, said a lot of you have asked, where is the Obama headquarters? You just get on this road and you keep going, and you go about a block or even a half a block past the Duval Hotel on North Monroe, and you'll be there. So work at campaign headquarters. Work through your organizations, be it workers, women, senior citizens, whatever. But work, work, work. Because we're gonna roll, we're gonna roll, we're gonna roll the women on. We're gonna roll, we're gonna roll, we're gonna roll the women on. And if Mitt Romney gets in the way, we're gonna roll right over him. We're gonna roll right over him. We're gonna roll right over him. And if Rick Scott gets in the way, we're gonna roll right over him. And Marco Rubio and Steve Sutherland and the whole bunch, we're gonna roll the women on. Happy rolling.
Our last speaker of the day is a good friend of mine. I met her a little over a year ago. Dr. Rachel Sutz-Pienta is actually going to speak on behalf of the Democratic Women's Club, but she is so much more than that. I hope she gets a chance to share some of that with you.
Well, thank you, Diane, but I really am just going to represent the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. I serve as their communications chair for the state of Florida. In my professional life, I teach and write about women organizing for social change. So the first thing I want to do today is thank you all for coming out here to work for change. The change, you're out here to be the change you want to see. We've talked about voting rights. We've talked about reproductive choice. We've talked about access to health care. We've talked about fighting for victim services for women who have been victims of rape. We've talked about the Violence Against Women Act, immigration. We have covered the bases today in this war against women. We know what we're up against. We have named the enemy. We know what their faces look like. We know what we have to do. So I, like many of the other people who spoke today, I am inviting you to continue in this war, to stand shoulder to shoulder with your sisters and brothers who support and love women. We are allies in this war together. So, with that in mind, I have a few invitations to extend to you this afternoon. Tallahassee has opened its hearts and doors to you. There are 4 organizations who are hosting open houses for you this afternoon. Leisha Berry, who is the co-founder of one of the organizations, Living Luna, has maps to the open houses. Living Luna has opened its doors. The League of Women Voters of Florida, the Oasis Center for Women and Girls, and Florida AFL-CIO have all opened their doors to you to give you hospitality where you can meet and speak with other fellow soldiers in this war that we are fighting. Additionally, directly in front of me, the National Women's Liberation from Gainesville, Florida, there's a banner. They will be marching. I know some of you wanted to march today. You have your chance. We're staying on the sidewalk, folks, because we're not obstructing traffic, but you can march with them to the governor's mansion and continue to speak out and share your stories. One of the final things I want to ask from you today is that we've been here today enjoying the People's House. The Capitol is the People's House. We vote for the people who come to Tallahassee to represent us. We can, of course, vote them out. And I do invite you to go to the polls in 2012 if you haven't registered to vote yet, if you haven't checked your registration, if you haven't made sure that your ID matches. We know that part of this war is restricting our access to the polls and our access to voting. Be sure that your rights, your voting rights, are in order before the primary in August, so you don't have the experience of being turned away or being handed a provisional ballot when you go to vote in 2012. The very last thing today is that I ask that you do leave this People's House as you found it, and that we are good stewards of the environment, and that you take everything with you that you brought. So trash and signs, please make sure that the grass is as pristine as we found it in this beautiful People's House. So again, thank you. Please enjoy our hospitality today and continue to work with us as we fight the war on women. Thank you.
thank you all so much for coming, and I just was asked to announce that there are Obama for America headquarters open in Panama City and in Pensacola as well. So good luck, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you will go to one of our open houses, and those of you that are marching, God bless you. Good luck.